got a question for you. What would motivate you to quit your job on the spot? Higher pay? A much better occupation? Working in an improved location? What about working for a much kinder and more just boss or employer? How about all of the above? In this Sunday's gospel, Jesus' invitation to some fishermen to leave their business and follow after him is best understood in the context of this question. What would motivate you to quit your job on the spot? Luke chapter 5, verses 1 through 11. While the crowd was pressing in on Jesus and listening to the word of God, he was standing by the lake of Gennesaret. He saw 2 boats there alongside the lake. The fishermen had disembarked and were washing their nets. Getting into one of the boats, the one belonging to Simon, Jesus asked him to put out a short distance from the shore. Then he sat down and taught the crowds from the boat. After he had finished speaking, Jesus said to Simon, "Put out into deep water and lower your nets for a catch." Simon said to him in reply, "Master, we've worked hard all night and have caught nothing. But at your command, I will lower the nets." When they had done this, they caught a great number of fish, and their nets were tearing. They signaled to their partners in the other boat to come to help them. They came and filled both boats so that the boats were in danger of sinking. When Simon Peter saw this, he fell at the knees of Jesus and said, "Depart from me, Lord, for I am a sinful man." For astonishment at the catch of fish they had made seized him, and all those with him, and likewise James and John, the sons of Zebedee, who were partners of Simon. Jesus said to Simon, "Do not be afraid. From now on you will be catching men." Then they brought their boats to the shore. They left everything and followed him. Fascinating last comment there. They left everything and followed Jesus. Luke notes that Peter, and we can assume from this his brother Andrew, had a business partnership with yet another pair of brothers, James and John, in Luke chapter 5, verse 10. Chapter 5, verse 2 says they owned at least 2 boats. In 1986, a boat was discovered. It's a fascinating find. 7.5 feet wide, 4.5 feet high, with a rounded stern and an excellent bow. It was found close to the shore of the Sea of Galilee, and carbon tests dated the boat to the period of 140 BCE to 40 CE. Physical anthropologists estimate that average Galilean males of the Roman Byzantine period stood about 5 feet 5 inches tall and weighed about an average of 140 pounds. You could easily put into such a boat 15 such men. It would weigh just about over a ton. In the story in verse 3, Jesus steps into Peter's boat. The source of this story, of course, is Mark, the first gospel. Mark explains that one boat held at least 5 passengers, James and John, their father Zebedee, and hired men, in Mark chapter 1, verse 20. So they left their father Zebedee, they being James and John, in the boat along with the hired men and followed him. There could have been many more. In the Greek and Roman period, fish had become a very popular commodity. It is not against reason to guess that this specific partnership, called by us the Jonah-Zebedee Fishing Syndicate, flourished. So what would prompt these four males, who were probably teenagers, to leave everything and follow Jesus in verse 11? Was it Jesus' invitation alone? For a man to call followers in the Mediterranean culture is readily recognized by every native there as a process of a patron gathering clients, creating a fictive family or fictive kinship network. It's a very real relationship, it's a very real family, but it's not biological, hence fictive. In cultures like the ancient Mediterranean world, where central government was thought to be weak and ineffective, people banded together for mutual assistance. For the most part, La Familia, the family, was very strong, very close-knit, stuck together, and helped each other out. People lived together in compounds of 50 to 100 persons each. Very strong, very loyal. But sometimes problems were too great. Sometimes it became necessary to reach beyond La Familia, beyond the 50 to 100 person kinship network living together, and form a fictive family, a family-like bond with others going through the same turmoil and strife and problems and crises, and join up with someone who could lend the help that your own biological family members couldn't. A coalition, a political faction. And this particular someone who can give what your own family members can't is called a patron. That is, a person who has surplus means and who distributes that surplus by purely personal whim and choice. Think about what is going on in this story. A Galilean peasant artisan day laborer comes into a town full of fishermen. He doesn't know anything about fishing. But somehow, after a brutally frustrating night of work without a single fish caught, this Galilean peasant is able to provide seasoned and experienced fishermen with a bountiful catch of fish. Obviously, there is more than meets the eye with this Galilean peasant day laborer named Jesus. He is obviously presenting himself as a patron, or perhaps better, as the representative of a patron, someone called a broker. And given the nature of the wondrous catch of fish, which is obviously beyond the capacity of human skill and effort, in this case, the patron is the God of Israel, and Jesus must be his representative, because he can broker deals with the God of Israel as a holy man. The broker is someone who can get for you something you cannot obtain by your own abilities, or on better terms than you could arrange for yourself. He's the person who can do for you more than your own family members can do for you. He's the person who can go beyond what your family can do. Jesus the broker gets the better of these fisher people at their own game. In Luke's story, Simon, James, and John clearly perceive Jesus in this role as holy representative to the patron God of Israel. That's why Simon Peter falls to the knees. Simon Peter is using a specific Mediterranean gesture that recognizes Jesus as his social superior, as the one who is broker representative for him to the patron. Luke notes that Simon and all who were with him were amazed at the catch of fish that they had taken in verse 9. When they reached the shore, they left everything and followed Jesus. Verse 11. Now, it's possible that everybody in the boats followed Jesus, but we know that Simon, Andrew, James, and John did. But apparently, Jonah and Zebedee, their fathers, did not. What was the everything that these teenagers, and they probably were teenagers, left? Well, it had to have been more than boats and nets and fish. The everything that they left included their social network, which meant other patrons, friends, and neighbors in their home village, in addition to the relatives, father, mother, wife, in-laws. If you looked at them and you were an ancient Mediterranean villager, Israelite villager, looking at them leave with Jesus, you would think these teenagers were crazy. Unless you saw what they saw in this new patron, this new broker, Jesus. Something that they could not get anywhere else from anyone else. It's not entirely clear what the followers of Jesus, his new clients, saw. but certainly it must have been more than fish. They were convinced by this wondrous catch of fish, at least in Luke's story, that Jesus was the holy man broker that they needed. The one who could barter for them, get for them what they really needed from the patron God of Israel. In mainstream United States culture, we 21st century Westerners take great pride in standing up on our own 2 feet and winning and achieving and accomplishing, and in not having to rely on anybody else. We adore the self-made woman or self-made man. We applaud those who pull themselves up by their own bootstraps. We mythologize our winners and doers in this society. In our comic books, our Mediterranean ancestors in the faith, people like Peter, Andrew, James, and John, if they could, from their time and culture, look through the centuries and see us, Western Christians, in the 21st century, they would think of us as insane. Flirting with death and extinction. How very different we are from our ancestors in the faith of the New Testament times. My friends, to follow Jesus, the Mediterranean Israelite broker, holy man, as a client of the patron God of Israel in this first century world, or to follow Jesus, truly God and truly man, as a Christian disciple in the modern Western world, both involve a willingness to be utterly dependent. You have to give up apparent security for a perceived greater security. Are we Americans up to this kind of surrender? Galilean illiterate fishermen in the first century, Peter, Andrew, James, John, men we call saints, certainly were.